bossy, freaky. Yeah, these are just some of the terms that are often used to describe only children. Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guests. I am an only child, and thus onlys tend to get a bad reputation. Now, I blame child psychologist G. Stanley Hall for the negative connotation often associated with only children. So it was G. Stanley Hall who said that being an only child is a severe disadvantage, that being an only child is a disease in itself. Think about that. Being an only child is a disease in itself. Wow. And from that, the negative stereotypes just kind of kept snowballing. And there are many of them which I've kind of had to overcome throughout my life. See, being an only child can sometimes feel like the kid on the playground with cooties. You're kind of treated differently. Sometimes people say or think that I'm kind of a freak or a social invalid just because I didn't have a sibling. But there are some benefits to being an only child, especially on Christmas and birthdays when my parents only had to worry about getting the best gift for me. And hundreds of studies have shown that there really is no difference between only child and their peers. Well, actually, there's one small difference. Only children tend to be higher achievers. Now, tonight, I'm going to share with you a few ways that being an only child has benefited me positively, particularly from an academic and a social standpoint. Before I get into it, I want to get a show of hands. How many people in this room are an only child?
What?
Yeah. Keep it up, keep it up. Now, how many people are also firstborns? Firstborns and only children.
No.
Everybody, firstborns and only children.
Yeah, wait, firstborn or?
And only children. So if you're firstborn and or an only child, either one, raise your hand. Practically the entire room. Interestingly enough, only children or firstborns make up about 25 to 35% of the population. But they exceed expectations in terms of achievement. 2/3 of entrepreneurs are either only children or firstborns. And only children or firstborns are more than twice as likely to be CEOs of a company. Over 50% of US presidents, 55% of Supreme Court justices, and 21 of the first 23 astronauts were all only children. The facts are staggering. Only children do seem to have higher ambition and to achieve more. And you might ask why? Well, I can give you 3 reasons. More positive expectations, more responsibility, and more feedback. Now, I received all of those growing up. And my dad, who's actually sitting back there, was a key reason for that. I remember, as a 5-year-old, him wanting me to get ahead in life. And he wanted to teach me math at a young age. So he used to put multiplication problems in the mirror of my bathroom and then quiz me on the solutions. I'm not joking. And while it might have been a little annoying at the time, I did know my multiplication tables down cold. And by the time they were taught in school, I really didn't have a problem. So while I was watching my peers kind of struggle with new material, I was just getting a refresher course. And as a result, I had more confidence in my ability and more motivation to do more with it. But regardless of how you perform in academia or in professional life, there still is a social stigma with being an only child. See, I didn't have a brother or sister to play with growing up, so I kind of had to learn to be independent, to learn to find joy in being alone. Enter my imaginary friends, Bonston and Louie. Now some of you guys are looking at me like, see, I knew you were crazy. You're an only child and you have imaginary friends. What a weirdo. But I'm going to share with you how Bonston and Louie, as oddly as this sounds, help me function both independently and in a group setting. Now first let me start with a little background on Bonston and Louie. See, they were kind of like the good angel, bad angel that you see in cartoons. Bonston was the good angel, and Louie the bad. Now Louie would always sit there and say, eat the cookies from the cookie jar, they're delicious. And then Bonston would be over here and he would retort, but if you eat the cookies, you will spoil your dinner and get in trouble. Louie didn't care, he's like, take the cookies or I will. So, what do you think I did? I ate the cookies. I couldn't let Loogie have them. And I'd always get in trouble for it. My mom would say, "Why'd you eat the cookies?" And I'd believe her, "No, it wasn't me. Loogie made me do it." Now, as weird as that sounds, it taught me responsibility for my actions, going back to the first point, because I couldn't deflect or share blame with a sibling. It was all on me. And I'd like to tell you about how Bonsan Loogie helped me on a more social level. I remember when I was about 5 or 6 years old, I went to Palm Springs with my older cousin Jason. Now on this trip, I didn't play with him at all. He would say, "Hey Kenny, do you want to wrestle?" He was a big wrestling guy. And I'd be like, "I can't, Jason. I'm playing with Bonsan and Loogie. Maybe later." He would say, we'd go to dinner, and he'd say, "Kenny, can I sit next to you?" And I said, "I'm sorry, but I saved the seat for Bonsan and Loogie, so I can't sit here." Now by the end of the trip, Jason was irate. And on the car ride home, he got his wrestling moves out, and he gave Bonsan an elbow drop, he put Loogie in a headlock, and he threw them both out the window, killing them. And I cried hysterically. But in this scenario, my older cousin Jason somewhat served as an older brother and taught me a very, very valuable lesson. And that is, while I could entertain myself, it was also important to be able to be social and have friends. And from that point on, I kind of made a conscious effort to have a social network and to have friends. See, only children, because we don't have siblings, we tend to find sibling-type bonds with our friends. My friends are like my brothers. I don't have a real, a blood brother, so I rely on them for many of the ways that traditional siblings rely on one another. And in a way, I kind of prefer the relationship because I get to choose my friends, whereas siblings don't always get to choose one another. So I'd like to leave you with a few last points, and that is, while people do feel often that is a disadvantage to being an only child, I feel that it has contributed positively to my development. And as mentioned, studies show that only children are really no different from their peers, except in terms of higher achievement. And if that is a disease, well then I'm glad to have the only child disease.